everyone, so today I'm going to be talking about my Japan trip and some thoughts I've had, upon reflecting on the experience and stuff. So I have some notes here to hopefully keep me on track and keep this video from getting too long and rambly, but we'll see. So for those of you who don't already know, I went on a 6-week study abroad trip to Japan from the end of May through the beginning of July. So I've been back for a little bit now and I've been getting back into my normal life now, so I'm finally going to sit down and make this video that I really wanted to make. And yeah, it might not be that interesting for everyone, but I definitely think that if you are considering going to Japan, especially if you want to go there for a long time, or even maybe if you want to live there in the future, I really recommend you watch this video because I definitely learned a lot, and there's things that people don't talk about when they talk about visiting Japan, and I kind of want to talk about those things. So a little bit more about my program that I went on. I'm not going to give too many details for privacy reasons, but I went on a program that was affiliated with a university in Japan through my university. So that part was really smooth to set up because I didn't have to do a lot on my own communicating with the Japanese university or anything. I know that's not the case for all programs because not everyone's colleges will have something like that available, but that's what was for me. So there was about, 15, maybe a little more, 15 or so people on the program. I really don't remember total from my university, but there were only 6 girls on the program. So it ended up being 3 and 3 in the 2 different dorms for the girls, which was really nice because I had a lot of space. I was able to have my own room, which was really beneficial to me because there was a time during the trip when I was definitely not feeling my best and not feeling social at all, because there was just so many hard things going on based on like different factors. I really should not talk too much about specifics, but there was about a week in the middle of the program where I was just really honestly kind of depressed from just everything happening. And I'm going to get into a little bit more of some of the reasons why that was, because some of them just had to do a little bit with, I think, culture shock. Because I went into this thinking like, oh, I've done tons of research, like I'm not gonna really have big culture shock. I don't think that's gonna be a problem for me, but I was really wrong. Basically, I don't think anything could have prepared me for what I experienced. I think I went in as prepared as I could have possibly been, and I still was super surprised. So some things that I was kind of prepared for that people always said, oh, this is going to be a big culture shock. Things like, oh, you can't ask for things out of your food if you don't like them. That actually turned out to be false, for me anyway, in the area that I was in. When I did ask for things out, because I have a lot of food allergies and things that I just cannot eat, so I found that when I went with Japanese students, they would help me order stuff off of things and it was perfectly fine. So I was hearing all these warnings about that, but it turned out to be not a huge problem. I mean, I didn't feel comfortable asking myself because I was just afraid because of everything I had heard, but it really was fine. So stuff like that, I mean, it probably would depend on the restaurant and stuff, but for me it was never a problem. Like, I ended up one time ordering omurice just plain without meat in it, and there was like no questions asked really. But yeah, that was just a personal thing for me because of allergies and intolerances to things and stuff. But yeah, that was just a big thing for me that I was really scared for and turned out to be fine. So let's talk about the things that were not so fine. So I was a little aware of this before, but I just did not expect it to this level. Japan is very, very good at hiding the negative things about their culture. And really just anything negative, they just kind of sweep it under the rug and don't really talk about it at all, which my theory is that that's why they have so many problems, especially when it comes to mental health, because they don't talk about it. And if you don't talk about it, then you really can't fix anything. And it's been really interesting to talk about this with some of the Japanese students I interacted with too, because a lot of them realized that that was a problem, but there's really nothing they could do about it. And I feel like that's the attitude of a lot of people, is that they just feel like they can't do anything about it, so why bother, basically? And I wish that there's something that they could do about it, but the fact is, because of Japanese culture, there really is truly nothing you can do about it. And I imagine that living there, I would feel really helpless in a lot of these situations, because the culture there is just so different than America when it comes to, like, even in high schools and middle schools, things like talking to a teacher if you have a problem, that's not something that's done over there. You can't really do that. So everybody just grows up with that. Yeah, but that's not really my main problem. It's just something that I think about a lot, and the whole trip was really eye-opening for me because I didn't really know these things before. Even though I did a lot of research, they're just things that I didn't really think I would need to know, but I feel like understanding something like that really helped me understand better some of the Japanese students and their thought processes, and just I felt like it helped me understand people a lot better and be able to make better friends with people, even though I really only walked out of the trip with like a couple of friends, and I only really talked to one person on a regular basis, which is fine with me. I'd rather have one good friend than a bunch of fake or not so good friends. Which that actually brings me to my next point. So the university I was going to for 6 weeks to take the Japanese language classes, so I only had the one Japanese class that I had to take for the program, but it was about 3 hours every day, Monday through Friday. So that university was really small. Like, I think there was only 3,000 students or something. I'm not quite sure, I think that's right, but really small. And so that was kind of interesting to me because I go to a very large university, the complete opposite of this kind of university. So because of that, it was pretty much like everybody knew everything about everybody. And people who were in the same major would spend a lot of time together, so they just knew everybody. Like, everyone knew everybody, which was, it led to some problems. Like, there was a lot of things where there was deeply seated hatred between certain people, but they couldn't really do anything about it because they just couldn't avoid each other, because everybody was kind of just forced to be together a lot. So that was really interesting for me to see, because I haven't really experienced that before on a university level. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of the things that were going on were high school level of petty, which was really sad for me to see, because as much as I tried to stay out of it, people just kept pulling me in. As I've said many times, I'm not going to get too into it, but one thing that I did notice was really interesting about pretty much every friendship and friend group in the entire university that I observed, and I actually heard this from one of my new Japanese friends, that he realizes that it is this way, is that people care a lot more about having lots of friends and looking like they're popular than actually having close friendships. Like, it's really common for people to have like one or two like best friends and be genuine friends with that person, but they'll have a ton of other friends that they really don't like that much. A lot of people don't really like each other that much, but they act like they like each other because it looks bad to not have a lot of friends and to not look like you're popular. Like, if you are constantly eating lunch alone or just eating lunch with a small group, that's bad. But if you're eating lunch with a big group, even if you don't really like each other and you don't really have anything in common, that looks better. It looks better to be surrounded by people. Which is interesting to me because you could tell with some of these groups that they didn't like each other. Like, I witnessed one group of people, they always ate lunch together, always studied together, but they didn't like each other. They didn't really have enough in common to keep conversations going. They would literally sit there and eat lunch in almost silence, and there was tension there, but it would look bad if they suddenly stopped eating lunch together, I feel like, and so that's why they kept doing it. I mean, we have that happen sometimes in America too, especially in high schools, but this was just another level of I didn't really understand, and I think about it a lot, and I still really don't understand exactly why they would act that way, and like why the appearance matters so much to them. So another piece of important information I forgot to mention earlier is that I was in Osaka, Osaka Prefecture. I won't give my exact location, but I went to downtown Osaka a lot. But I also took about 3-day, 4-day-ish trip to Tokyo at the very end of the program. So I want to kind of talk about some of the similarities and differences I noticed in Osaka and Tokyo, because going to Tokyo really was a big shock for me. Because things are just so different than in Osaka. Like, by the end of the trip I was thinking, oh, I've got Japan figured out. But when I went to Tokyo, I was just like, oh my, nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense anymore. Everything is different. Which isn't quite true, but it felt that way to me, because they stand on the opposite side of escalators. I mean, I'm sure you've heard in Japan they have like 2-lane escalators. Like, people stand on one side and so people can walk up the other side. Like, people stand single file if they're going to stand on an escalator. So in Tokyo, people stand on the opposite side that they do in Osaka. In Osaka, everybody stands on the right, but in Tokyo, the standing lane is on the left. And I'm not really sure what that is. It's just something that I noticed and was kind of really surprised, because I got used to standing on one side and then suddenly everyone was standing on the other side and I'm like, oh, I guess I should do this now. Like, alright. So honestly, in my opinion, comparing it to Osaka, Tokyo was a nightmare. Like, a nightmare. And it was fun. I really enjoyed my time in Tokyo, but as far as long-term being in Japan, I'm really glad that I was in Osaka, because Tokyo would have been such a pain to deal with on a regular basis, I feel like, because there was just so many more people. Like, even during rush hour in Osaka, Tokyo was way worse just every time of the day, honestly. Like, during rush hour in Osaka, it was bad and there was a lot of people, like, you couldn't move on the trains, but I feel like Tokyo's rush hour was a lot worse and it lasted longer because there were so many more people that had to get through, and even when the trains were coming like every minute, there was still long lines to get on the trains. The first day we were in Tokyo, we went to Harajuku, and on our way there, because we had some mishaps during the day, we were getting there kind of late around rush hour time, and I know we had to wait through like a couple of different trains before we could get on, and it was so packed, like there was no space, you couldn't move. And I had experienced that before a little bit in Osaka, but I was just not prepared for the sheer amount of people, because I thought before that Osaka's rush hour was just rush hour in Japan. I'm like, oh well, it can't get any worse than this, but it's so good! And overall, I think what made Tokyo worse was people were a little bit more aggressive. They were still pretty polite compared to like anywhere in America, but in Tokyo, because it's bigger, people were more aggressive. And I think it's because you almost have to be to get anywhere, really. But I'm not really an aggressive person, so I wasn't really so good at dealing with that. And I really respect people who are able to survive in Tokyo and do that every day. Like, go you. Yes, all the applause, because I would not be able to do it. In fact, after this trip, I really don't think I would want to live in Japan for multiple reasons. But if I did live in Japan, I would want to live in Osaka, I think. If I did. I don't think I will. But before I went to Japan, the biggest city I had been in was New York City. And New York City was really shocking to me when I went there. And I feel like if I hadn't been to New York before, Japan would have been way more shocking for me, at least the big city part of it. But overall, it really was not that bad in Osaka. Tokyo just, I think it's just something that you have to experience to know how horrible it can be. And as I said, it's not that I didn't have fun. I went to Disney Sea while I was there, and overall getting there was a really pleasant experience, and I liked the little Mickey train. And I also did a lot of shopping in Tokyo and stuff like that. Saw all the big areas and stuff, and that was really good. But there were still a lot of things I didn't like about it, just mostly about getting around. I think the getting around and being on the trains was the worst part, because being in the actual atmosphere, everything's so tall and it's super cool. Like, I love like just looking up and it's like there's all these tall buildings, which where I live, that's not really something I see a lot, because everything's like maybe 2 stories on our big streets and then like a couple of tall buildings. But just, yeah, everything in Japan is built up because there's so many people. Like, it was really common for restaurants even to just be 2 floors, and I thought that was really interesting. Like, it was cool, but it was just something I wasn't used to. So in general, I think there are a lot of really good things about Japan. I really appreciated that a lot of the food was healthier than in America, and a lot of things tasted less fake, but also it was just like, because so many things in Japan are completely Japanese influenced, there were certain flavors I kind of got tired of, and I kind of started to miss like really sweet sweets, because aside from things like mitsudashi dango, a lot of things didn't have a lot of sugar in them, and so they weren't overly sweet, which was refreshing for a while, but then I started to miss my sweets because I'm kind of a, I don't know how to say this, I just really like sugar. That's a problem. I definitely ate way healthier in Japan. Even though I eat healthy here, it was just easier to eat healthy over there because fast food portions were smaller. I ate fast food way more in Japan than I do in America. I don't really like eating fast food, but I did it a lot in Japan because I felt like I could justify it because I was walking around so much and I was burning off all the calories anyway, and the sizes were smaller. Also soda, that's another thing I drank a lot of in Japan that I don't really drink here in my normal life. But yeah, I think overeating is something I do in America, and I think that's my problem because all the portions are so big of everything. I mean, not when I cook for myself. When I cook for myself, it's reasonable, but if I go out to eat, it's just like too much food and I get kind of sick, and in Japan I didn't have that problem as much, which yeah, was really nice. So I really enjoyed that part of Japan. The food was so good. I loved the food. Even though there was things I couldn't really eat or couldn't try because allergies. But like, I tried a lot of really new things I didn't think I would end up trying, like takoyaki. I didn't think I would eat that, but I ate it and I really liked it. My favorite thing to eat in Japan was parfaits. Those were something that I really got my sugar fix from. Even though like the cake and stuff they would sometimes put in them was a little less sweet, the soft serve ice cream made up for it. And the soft serve in Japan, all of it that I had was really good. Like, I don't know what it was, but it was just really good for some reason. Yeah, I said I wasn't gonna talk a lot, but here I am, and I feel like I've been talking forever. But yeah, in conclusion, I learned a lot on this trip. I learned that I really don't think I can ever see myself wanting to live in Japan, like, long term. Just because, and I won't really get into this because there's probably videos out there somewhere that explain this better. As a woman who wants to have a successful career in either the film industry or game industry. My major is both of those, so I could really do like a lot of things with either of those, but both of those are technically like kind of more technical industries, which in Japan, from what I understand, in those industries, like, just if you're kind of at a disadvantage if you're a woman in those industries, and that's because Japan really isn't that progressive. Like, they're really traditional, and so yeah, they haven't really made the same steps in equality that we have here in America and some other countries yet, which I think they're getting there. I just think they haven't gone far enough yet. For me, I think I would rather work in a country that is a little bit more equal in terms of men and women, because that's something that really bothers me. Like, I don't want there to be like a pay gap, which in Japan there's that and then some other issues to worry about. But other than that revelation, I really would like to go back someday. I think I'd like to visit again, especially Osaka. I really loved Osaka, and there's things that I didn't get to see that I think I would want to go back and see, or take people with me and make them all see what I saw there and really liked. And overall, the experience was just really eye-opening. I think I learned a lot and I really enjoyed it, despite the things that were not so good. So if you made it to the end of this video of me just talking, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already to see more of my idol content, and hopefully another Japan video. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'll see you all later. Bye!